Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership, and not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people.
What we're doing today, what we're doing, this week. But all of it, I thought through all of it.
Yeah.
And there's more. I mean, I could talk for hours about what I've learned over this last year. But
what I wanted to do today was I wanted to talk through like closing out 2024 and then like take our first shot at what do we think 2025 looks like? What are our goals? What are our objectives? Our key results that we're trying to do. It doesn't usually come to perfection until the second, third weeks, or even the second, third months of into 2025. And I thought, what better way to do that than start off with a morning stand-up, using a format that we're both familiar with, and kind of get started from there and just see where it goes.
Cool. And I was talking to Dean today, and he said, it's really cool. He said, you've been 2 years, maybe 2.5 years away from the squadron, and y'all still doing stand-ups.
Yeah.
And he said, that's notable.
Yeah. And a couple times already it's happened at work right now where we're looking for like a format for a meeting or an agenda or how we should run, like a plans update. And the amount of times that we say, why don't we just follow like very similar to like the stand-up? What's the one thing you got to get done? What does the week look like?
Yeah.
What big decisions you got coming up? What guidance do you need from the commander? What decisions do you need from the commander? And then get it off your chest sometimes morphs into something different. Like, where do you need guidance or something like that?
Yeah. Well, it's efficient too. I'm definitely going to adopt this when I take command, because it's just an efficient and quick way to get everything out,
Yeah.
So I like it. And I think it offers the opportunity for folks to be a bit vulnerable. And so you can close the gap on what you think your boss wants to hear, as opposed to like what's really going on. And, so it's good.
Yeah. And I think as you start to implement it, like the first couple times, if you're with a group that doesn't quite know each other, like the one thing turns into like 50 things, and it's like, you can't just empty your green book. Like that isn't your one thing, what's the one, and you're starting to get along when like the one thing is like, I gotta be out of here by like 1300. Cause if I don't get on the road by then, I'm going to miss, this thing for my kids or for my wife, or, I'm not going to be prepared for that meeting. I got it at 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon. I have to take some time,
Yeah.
And the same thing with the get it off your chest. Like if you don't know the people, the get it off your chest is usually, it's usually not that intense, I think you're starting to get along with your crew is when we get started and they go, hey, I want to skip straight to get it off my chest.
Yeah, that's right. You start there.
Yeah. Can we just start there? Otherwise I'm going to be thinking about it the whole time. Yeah. So I do want to start with 2024. Like what do we got to get done over the next few weeks? How do we close it out? And then that'll kind of be the springboard into 2025. So like from a one thing perspective, the one thing I got to do over the next couple of weeks is absolutely focus on my family, my kids, and myself through the holidays, easily the most stressful time of the year for every family and for people that's out there. And the kids are going to start flowing in. Ryan and Brady are going to be here on Saturday. Hunter will be here the day after Christmas, and we'll have the whole crew out here in Hawaii with us. And so my absolute focus is on them, soaking up every minute that I can with them and helping them with whatever I can help them with, and spring into 2025, because it's going to be the 3rd of January before you know it, and they're going to be heading back home, and I won't see them again. I'm super excited to just have them all under one roof.
Yeah. I'm thinking about how fast January is coming, and I know what's on the horizon for me is the pre-command course. I'm going to be gone for 6 or 7 weeks. So for me, it's presence and quality time. That's number one on my list. And whatever that looks like in terms of what the family needs, that's kind of where I want to be. But then I'm also balancing other things. So I have to fight to make that a priority and not let, physical fitness and, me brainstorming and dissertating get in the
Hmm.
way.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm gonna lose some quality time. So I tend to struggle with that.
Yeah.
And so that's, maintaining presence and quality time is going to be my number one thing. And I know I'm going to struggle with that, but
Yeah.
that's what I got to do.
Yeah, and I feel like over the years, the best way to kind of combat that is when you go into the holidays, if you stick to a routine that you've been doing for months and don't try to adapt something totally different for the
Hmm.
holidays, like you don't. Now that I'm on leave, I'm still trying to get up at the same time. I'm still trying to do my thinking at the same time. I'm still trying to do my PT at the same time and prepare so that you're in more of a routine and not going on leave for 2 weeks and everything's going to change about my
Yeah.
routine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. How about your schedule between now and January? What's that look like?
Yeah. It's a lot of writing. So the problem with it's not even a problem. The challenge with this dissertation is that when if I'm spending quality time with my family or if I'm out and I'm doing something, I'm still thinking about the thing that I'm writing continuously. And so ideas pop up in my head. And sometimes I have to react to those or I'll lose them.
Mm,
So for me, it's like trying to keep a mechanism to record the epiphanies that come up in my head in the moment that they come. Otherwise, I'll lose them. That's one. And then the second thing is like trying to anticipate, which I need to stop doing, but trying to anticipate what the pre-command course is going to require of me and put myself in a headspace to function that way. Because while that's happening in January, I still have to close out this dissertation. And so for me, it's really finishing strong,
hmm.
right? So I can start the next race faster, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Um, and so I'm trying to figure out how to triage the things that I consider as priorities, family and then my work, and then what's looming is command, and just trying to triage all those things so they don't conflate and combine and create chaos for me.
Yeah. I just reread yesterday "Insane Productivity for Lazy People."
Mm,
Again, one of my favorites. And in it talks about focus and balance, and that you can't have balance. Like you can't do everything well. Like you can't prepare for command. You can't be doing your physical fitness well. You can't be spending quality time with your family and writing your dissertation. If you try to do those four things every single day of the week, you're going to do none of them well, right? It says
yeah,
you have to
yeah.
focus an inordinate amount of time, especially if you want to be, elite. If you want to be in that category of like exceptional, right? You can be
Hmm.
average in everything, but if you want to be really good, like a professional athlete has to spend an inordinate amount of time on their fitness and on practice. It's not going to be balanced with their family life.
Hmm.
Those
Hmm.
things, those things are a little bit different. And it was a good reminder going into the holidays that you can't spend 6 to 8 hours still writing and thinking about work if you're trying to spend quality time with your family. Can't do it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that goes back to your routine, right? So I know for me, I'm at my peak mental state early in the morning. So that's when I get my best writing done. And thankfully, my
Mm.
kids out of school tomorrow, so I'm still in the routine. But when they get, I guess next week, it's probably be better too because they like to sleep. So
Yeah,
so I have more time in the morning to get my writing done.
yeah,
So when they wake up, I can be present with them. So I might get some latitude next week. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. When you said you get your best writing done in the morning, Malcolm Gladwell said that he's a huge runner, right? And he's running anywhere from 6 to 8 miles a day. And it takes a lot of time to do that. And he used to do it in the morning, but what he found was is he got his best writing done in the morning. So he would get himself up, get the coffee, get himself going, and he would spend his morning writing. And then when he ran into a wall, or he started to get that writer's block, that's when he went for his runs.
That's what I do.
Yeah, don't waste your
Yeah.
most quality time. If that's in the morning, don't waste your most quality time doing something that maybe doesn't require much thought, like running.
Yeah. It's writing is hard. Like it's very difficult to put the ideas in your head on paper where somebody can understand them simply, and so I have the same practice. I'll get up and I'll write for like 2 or 3 hours. And then once I hit a point where I have to really develop a thought or I hit writer's block, I'll go work out. And then when I go work out while I'm lifting weights or running, it will work itself out. That the thought will work itself out. So here's my problem. When that happens, I come back from the gym back to the computer,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, to flesh out the thought that I just worked through while I was working out.
Yep.
Now I have a luxury of time to do that now in this grad program. That will change when I get into a more consistent, battle rhythm, if you will, a schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So.
I think you take that time during the pre-command course and you put in, you know, on disproportional amount of time towards writing and towards thinking
Hmm.
during
Hmm. Hmm.
the pre-command course. When you get into a time where you no longer have that kind of time available, you're out, you're walking, you're going from meeting to meeting, you're going from place to place, meeting with soldiers. Those things are just going to kind of come to you, and it's going to be more instinctual. You're going to notice that it just comes to you at the moment,
Yeah.
and people might look at you and say, how did you know what to say at that right moment, or how did you come up with that, how were you prepared? And there's the famous, like, if you don't have something prepared to say, you don't deserve to be in charge, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how this cognitive process that I've been in for the last 3 years transitions because now I'm not going to have to worry about trying to finish a dissertation. Like I'm going to jettison that because it'll be complete, and then I can put my 100% attention on the organization. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious to see what's that going to look like? Because I think it's going to be a higher quality than it was before, based on what I've practiced over the last 3 years.
Yeah. It sounds like we kind of shifted from like what's the next couple of weeks look like to like what big
Hmm.
decisions you got coming up. From big decisions like, as I get ready to over the next few weeks to go into 2025 is that every morning I've been waking up and thinking about goals. I've been thinking about objectives. I've been thinking about what key results do I want in those goals, those objectives, from a personal standpoint, from a professional standpoint, from my family's standpoint, health,
Hmm.
relationships, contribution. I take all those things, I put them all together, and I've been thinking about it a little bit each day. Similar to the writing, like every morning a bunch comes out, and then you go off and exercise and you try to clarify it. So if someone was to say, what are your big goals for 2025? You could clearly say, this is what they are. One, two, three, right?
Yeah.
And not just say, it's going to be a busy year. I got 1,000 things going on. Well, what are a
Hmm.
couple of them? What's just a few of them? Like what are the biggest ones you got coming on? And I think that's a quick way to ask yourself, am I clear? Do I have some clarity in what I'm trying to get done? What's important to me? What's important to my organization? What's important to my family? And again, every day you're just kind of trying to refine it, going in. So what big decisions do you got kind of coming up?
Yeah. So I'll start um, micro and then I go macro. So um, I wrote down here, visualize. That's a big decision I have to make, like setting deliberate time for me to visualize what the future is going to look like, what 2025 is going to look like, knowing full well that 6 months of that time is going to be me finishing out this degree program.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be a very quick transition into battalion command, which I'm looking forward to. But I want to visualize that first week, day by day,
Mm-hmm.
and what that is going to look like. And then the second thing I need to do is communicate that to my family and to key leaders in the organization, so that there is some expectation in terms of what's to come. So visualize and communicate, and then the long-term goals, personal and professional, are on my mind. So professionally, it's JRTC. It's coming at the end of the year, and so working toward organizational success there. But then my personal goals are going to nest with my professional goals because I'm going to be all in on battalion command, and really trying to figure out what type of leader the organization needs me to be
Mm-hmm.
when I get there is going to be key for that. And I think my personal goals, my wife and I got to sit down and talk about what we want to achieve collectively, and that's probably going to be centered around the kids,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of
Mm-hmm.
consistency at schools and their extracurricular activities and trying to show up and support them throughout the year. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things happening, but my year 2025 is split for me, half in school and then half transitioning to organization.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you just rambled off several of the things that I'm thinking about. But when I think about 2025, I think about a year of execution because it's going to be a straight 12 months. I've been in command now for several months.
Hmm.
I know what's coming. We've developed a few things to help communicate what we think that year looks like. I use a thing called the enterprise plan, where it kind of lays out the next couple of years and how we kind of see that happening. But it's a year of execution, right? And what I mean is that we've done a lot of thinking, we've done a lot of planning, we've done a lot of preparing to communicate these things. Now it's time to execute it, right? For a year, a whole year. And I think it's a time to execute. Go ahead. I can't
Hello,
hear.
you there?
Yep, I hear
I
you.
got you now. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's good. Um, so I think that 2025 is like a year of execution for me, both from a personal standpoint, from a professional standpoint. There won't be a lot of significant things. I won't have any kids graduating from school,
Hmm.
right? I'm not PCSing. I'm not changing command again this year. We're going to be executing a calendar that you can already see what it looks like for the next 12 to 18 months, right? We developed a plan, like the enterprise plan of what it looks like for the next couple of years. From a professional standpoint, from a 196 JPMRC side, but my life is kind of, I see where the road is for the next couple of years, right? And so I see it as a year of execution, a year where you take some of those goals, all the things that you've been practicing, thinking about, writing
Hmm.
about, reflecting on, and it's time to put them. It's time to just execute, right? Get results. The four disciplines of execution, is something that I use to always execute as best that I can over the course of a year. That's the big North Star, if you will, execution for the year of 2025.
Yeah, I love how you've always been methodical and very deliberate and strategic in the way you execute leadership. And I'm starting to I pick up off a lot of that, by the way. But I'm also starting to think about how I make decisions too, and how they're probably a little less formulaic, which is not to say good or bad, but mine tend to be a little bit more intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm working through that now in terms of like, okay, say, oh, trust your gut, but that only takes you so far. You need some
Right.
reason there,
Right.
But generally speaking, when I make decisions or I have to figure something out, it tends to come to me intuitively. Like when I was working for you, you say, hey, take a night's sleep on it and wake up, you'll know what to do. And almost always that always happens for me. Almost always it happens for me. So now I guess I've learned to capture those epiphanies. That's why I say it's hard
Yeah.
when I'm thinking, because I got to try to capture that. Because usually those are where the solutions come from me. But yeah, I've always admired your systematic way. I look behind you and see all the blueprints behind you
Yeah.
on how to do business, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, what I did, I turned my office over the last few weeks. I turned my office into very similar to what we had, in the Rattlesnakes, where we had, the huge whiteboard on the right that has all things
Yeah.
operations, and the huge whiteboard on the left that had all things, sustainment, support, the XO side. And then you had your side with the ops and the huge
Yeah.
calendar and everything that was contributing towards execution, right? And you start putting those things up on the wall. And you start highlighting certain things, making notes on areas where it's kind of there's a huge gap. What does this mean? Can you clarify this a little bit better? Because
Hmm.
although you understand it, the people that are around you, chances are they don't. Your guidance was not that clear. Chances are what
Yeah.
you said did not make sense to them. You just have to assume that, most leaders think, oh, I put out this perfect guidance, or I put out this perfect memo, I put out training guidance. Why do you not understand? You know,
Mm.
it's not what you said and the message that was sent. It's the message that was received and how the people that are out there, received that message and how they interpreted it. So you get your brief backs, you get your, so what do you think the priorities are? So if somebody in your organization says something like, I've been there for, almost 120 days now. And I heard somebody say, you know, I'm not sure what the priority is, like we've got all these things that are going on and, I'm not sure which
Yeah.
one I got to do first. And it was like, it was crystal clear that that person needed a little bit more help, focusing on what's clear, what is the most important thing in that person's world. Cause that person
Hmm.
was trying to take on everything that the organization was doing, on their, and put it on their plate. And they just needed a
Sure.
little bit more help, to clarify. And you can't assume that, that the fault is on them. No, the fault is on you as the leader. It is your responsibility as the leader to synchronize things around there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. As you're talking, I'm writing down and thinking about, what kind of organization I want to help contribute to.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote down three words. High velocity is one of them. A very high velocity organization is able to function in ambiguity, and disparate times. An organization of endurance, and we laid that out in the last podcast. We talked about preparing for command, but that is still with me, right? You have to endure to win. And then legacy, because the Red Devil Battalion has a rich, rich legacy. And so, galvanizing those alumni around, a new generation of warriors, to contribute to the legacy, right, and enhance it. And so I'll be thinking about those things in the pre-command course, and how I can try to contribute in my own way, to organization that's already high performing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, brother. It always is when you come into an organization, there's a lot of things that they do that are going to be great. There's some things they're going to need to they've noticeably said, I need to improve on these things. But you gotta kind of carefully, how you want to communicate that,
Hmm.
with them. Because if you come in and you say, hey, these are all the things that we're going to fix, these are things we're going to work on, it's real easy for folks to look at you and say, what do you think? We thought we were a pretty good organization before you showed up.
Yeah, yeah,
All of a
yeah.
sudden you
That's right.
show up and everything is went to crap. That ain't true. And even when you think you're striking a good balance, you got to go even more, because the command climate survey is going to come back and they're going to be
Mm.
like, somebody thinks they need to come in here and fix everything. We weren't that bad before you. And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So you might as well anticipate that, ahead of time, and start to work in that direction already.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's why I'm thinking about the organization is already having some momentum,
Hmm.
and it's not my battalion.
Yeah.
It's a battalion of the guys who came before and the ones who are contributing to it now, and so I'm just hoping to come in and help the team.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're good. I think you're already on the path of gaining some of that clarity. You are juggling two big things between the dissertation and preparing for command.
Yeah, I'm gonna
That
do a
that
whole
that's a little bit
podcast
hard.
on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I ain't gonna cut you off. I keep thinking about just what I've learned over the last 3 years, and that's a whole nother podcast. But I'm gonna sit down and kind of flesh that out. You
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. And I think if you kind of line that out when you say flush it out, what are the big things that you need to get done first? That's a good way of taking your goals and your outcomes. What outcomes do you want to achieve those goals, and what key results do you want, to get after? It'll start to come to light. It'll illuminate for you the more that you think about it. So
Hmm.
as I was thinking about it, every morning I wake up, I start thinking through these things, and I'm like, what do I want my goals to be? And I'm happy to say that a lot of it is a continuation of the things that I've been doing for the last couple of years. There was not these huge dramatic things that popped out that said, boy, I need to really start exercising. Well, I've been
Yeah.
exercising, or boy, I really need to start giving some more time towards my family. And I said, well, I think I have been doing a decent job on that. So it became, a continuation of the things that I had last year, of, my family, my health, my relationships that I have with people, and then the contribution
Hmm.
that I give, towards both the Army and towards, those people that I'm surrounded by. So family, health, relationships, and contribution are my big four. They have been for a while, and they will continue
Yeah.
to be. Um, but they say, well, how do you take those goals and then turn them into some objectives? And I tried to like take like one or two things in each of those categories and start to say, okay, if my family, I would want to increase the communication or sustain the communication. I want to be a part of their lives. And the big one thing that I would do is start to schedule over the course of the next 12 months those big events. Evan's big volleyball tournaments, Plebe Parent
Mm-hmm.
Weekend back at West Point. Put it on the calendar and absolutely go to it. A big event for Brady back there at Fort Campbell, and then when Hunter makes his move back to, he's making a huge move up to Connecticut. He got promoted. He's got a new job up there with a new country club. And me and Christy need to go up there and see him and go see where he's
Yeah.
working and be deliberate about putting those things on the calendar for my family. And I did the same thing for family, health, relationships, and contribution.
Yeah, you went deep. We usually, the family, we'll sit down and do vision boards before New Year's. And so I'm really looking forward to that because that's where I really codify um, all of the goals. We do it collectively and we share them amongst each other so we can all see, what we're anticipating. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the hard part is like when you get into a goal or an objective that is not something directly related to work, that's when things get hard because we don't often apply the techniques that you use at work towards the rest of your life. But as soon as you get into for me, contribution is work, right? The 196th JPMRC and then Teach Me to Fish podcast, I want to continue to contribute in those
Yeah.
areas. And you're like, well, that's easy. We know what to do for MDMP. We know how to do training calendars. We know how to do, training meetings and command and staffs and give guidance and quarterly, guidance. And then there's a big calendar. It's easy to kind of understand your contribution. But when you start talking about your health and your relationships, all of a sudden it gets cloudy. The only thing you can really do with health, and you're like, ACFT score. And you're like, well, ACFT score is not just give me your score is not a direct correlation to your overall health.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love the comprehensive soldier fitness program for this reason. And 622 lays all of this out. It's like a holistic view of health and performance that's not just relegated to PT and picking stuff up and putting it down. It's nutrition, it's spiritual, it's mental, all of these things. And that's one thing I've come to appreciate over the last couple of years is that it's the totality of focusing on those multiple facets of your health. Not just, I used to think it's just PT and running,
Yeah,
as
same.
a young Thundercat out there with ego. If I could run fast, I was good. But then, my diet's jacked up. My mental health is jacked up. Spiritually, I'm jacked up. And so it's all of those things. And so I've come to have a greater appreciation for all of that stuff now.
Yeah, same. I think as we get a little bit older, one, it becomes necessary because when you're younger, your recovery is not as important. You can recover from a hard PT session or a long field a lot faster than we can now. A bad night's
Yeah.
sleep didn't affect us that back then as much as it does now. And when you got a bad night's sleep, or you're really hurting from a PT event or something like that, you weren't the one sitting at the head of the table back then either. You were sitting on the side of the table and you were contributing a little bit. But now when you get these interactions with people and it's not as often, you need to bring it every single time. Every time you walk in there and sit at the head of the table, you walk into a place and you got to have something, you got something to say or people are looking. That might be the only interaction they get with you as the battalion commander or the brigade commander all month, all week, right?
Yeah.
And you really
Yeah.
got to bring it. You can't say, well, I'm having an off day today. I'll come back at you tomorrow. You got to be able to bring it every
Yeah.
day. And so it's really important to not break yourself off that morning and then ruins the rest of the day, or not show up prepared because you didn't get a good night's sleep.
Yeah. 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 That's a lot. And I guess this takes me into my get it off my chest. I don't know what order we're in,
Yeah,
but
we're
we're
rolling.
just kind of jumping around. Yeah. So, here recently, I saw a news article about 50% of battalion command eligible folks are opting out across the board. Did you see that?
I did, and boy, we must be on the same wavelength, because your get it off your chest and mine are we're gonna be in the same, we're gonna be in the same category here for about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Keep
yeah.
going.
So that it pissed me off initially when I saw it because in one instance I appreciate how the military allows candidates to make decisions, right? If you don't want to be in a position, then you say it, and then we don't want you in a position if you don't want to be there. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, right? So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But then I also feel another way because you know what the hell you've been doing for your career. It's like, you know, this is a commitment. Right. And I'm speaking for me because it means a lot for me. And I understand and I respect people's opinions to have balance, you know, across
Yeah.
family and you know, career and mentally, all of that. And I also acknowledge that the generation of folks who are making those decisions now come from the GWAT and have different experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan. I get that too. Um, but I also know that these soldiers need good leadership. They need experienced leadership. You know, I appreciate the military's ability to give folks options and choices, but I also feel like, you know, we got a generation of soldiers who need good leadership and need experienced leadership. And, you know, part of me feels like, okay, if folks want to opt out of battalion command, then okay, um, that's fine. We'll have the best and the brightest, you know, that are taking it. Um, but at the same time, it's like, man, like for me, this is the most important thing I'll ever do in the military. I've been working for this since 1997,
Mm-hmm.
right? Battalion command to help serve and lead and influence, teach, coach, and mentor, you know, soldiers. And it's less about me than my ability to make an organizational impact. Um, and I just don't, maybe I don't fully understand folks, you know, having the excuse or the reason to say, well, they're unstable hours, or you know, soldier might get in trouble, and that might keep me away from my family.
Yeah.
Burden of leadership. That's what leadership is, you know. And so I don't know. I got to think through it a little bit more because right now these are emotional responses to that. But that kind of pisses me off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That qualified leaders will opt out of command because of personal interest.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is something me and you, I used to see when we were company commanders. So there was a lot of company commanders that didn't want to stay in the Army because they saw the way the field grades were living their life. And so
Yeah.
you know, the field grades would say, hey, of all you captains, who's going to stay? And half the people were like, I'm getting out. Like, this was while we were deployed a lot, right? They were leaving because they said, I don't want to do what you're doing. I don't want the hours. You guys, all the field grades look like they're miserable. It does not look like it's fun. Why
Hmm.
would I want to go do that? Um, and so we were losing a lot of captains. We still are, but we were losing a lot when I was growing up as a captain. And that was what they said. I don't want to do what the field grades and the way that they're living their life right now. That's not the life that I want. And I
Hmm.
wonder if some of those folks are seeing the way that some people have operated, and they're saying, I don't want that life. You know, like, that's not the life that I want. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's what they think, but we have talked to enough captains. We have talked to enough captains. I mean, that is the purpose of the podcast, right? Helping leaders
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
understand what's driving people. And at every echelon, that's kind of what it is. It's like, do I want to do with the people that are in charge? Do I want the life that they have going forward? And
Yeah.
the people that are opted out don't want that life. Period.
Well, I wonder if I could talk to them. I wonder if they've ever asked themselves the question of why they serve in the first place. And not that that should answer, that should be the end all be all, but like, you know, me being a captain looking at a field grade that hit his life, like I am not that person.
Yeah.
You know, I got to know that that person's they're making decisions to respond to things around them, and if they respond in a toxic way, that says more about them than it does about me per se.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I came to that realization early on, like me watching a battalion commander struggle through command or brigade or whatever I conceive to be struggle is. I'm going to be in a much different circumstance because I'm not that person, and we're
Hmm.
not in the same time and space.
Yeah.
So it's an invalid judgment, in my opinion, although it happens. And then the other thing is that that's just fear. I think and I've heard this from folks, fear of making decisions because, you know, anything you say or do will come back as reprisal of some sort, right? And I think that when you lead from an authentic place, you, I don't know, for maybe it's me, but when you lead from an authentic place, you shouldn't have to worry about that.
Hmm.
making the right decision is based on a moral value system that you understand to be authentically you, then if the consequences of your decisions are you getting fired, then that's something you had better thought through before you take command. And that's something you got to be okay with.
Yeah.
It's a moral and ethical line that you have to come to grips with yourself because the Army values mean different things to different people. And if we don't take the time to figure out what they mean for us, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. And I don't know if many people have sat and spent time thinking about that,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I don't. And I think it's different for everybody, right? And it's a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
different. It's a lot different for the majors and the captains right now in the Army, thinking about, being a battalion commander. And do I want to be a battalion commander? Going, the things are a lot different for them than it was the calculus. And when you ask somebody, why did you choose to serve in the first place? Remember, like it's why you chose to serve, but then 3 to 5 years later, you chose, why did you stay? Because
I
the
just
reason
say, yeah, it's
the
different.
reason you stayed was different than the reason that you came in. And then why do you choose to serve now? Like when you're starting to get to that 15 to 20 year mark, the reason you choose to continue to serve is different than the other two things. It has
Mm,
probably changed, right? So that
yeah,
that kind of gets me into what I wrote down was my get it off my chest was retirement. I only get asked about retirement and I only think about it every single day. Someone asks me every day,
really?
yes, like when are you going to retire? How much longer are you going to serve? How many years have you been in? I'm going into my 32nd year in the Army, right? Like since I was 17 years old. Like
Mm,
that's all I've been doing is the Army, and I love it. Right.
yeah.
But people ask you and you start thinking about it. I only think about it every single day. I really think about it when I'm tired, right?
Mm,
When I'm tired and you don't get a good night's sleep, your PT wasn't so great, you start thinking about, oh man, how much longer can you do this, right? But when you're full of energy, right, and everything's
it's like
clicking, and
forever.
oh,
It's
I could do
forever.
this forever. Like I could do this absolutely forever. So when the energy's high, but I think about it
Yeah.
a lot because people ask me about it, and they say, "What? How much longer? Like what? Why do you still do it now?" Right?
Hmm, hmm.
Because everybody I came in the Army with as an enlisted soldier, 99.9% of them are not in the Army anymore. And most of the people I served with as a lieutenant are not in the Army anymore either.
Yeah.
And so now the people that I'm continuing to serve with are not the people that I came in with, right? They're people that I've relationships that I've kind of developed over time. And so I've been talking about it a lot recently. And the get it off my chest is that you can think about it every day. I think you can talk about it pretty often. You can. It doesn't need to be a secret, right? Tom Brady said this,
Hmm,
a while ago. He's like, the second you start talking about retirement, you are already retired. Like you
hmm.
can't even talk about it. It needs to be in the back corner. You need to put it in a closet because if you talk about retirement and the people in charge of you hear about it, you're out.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be out and they're not going to give you the next assignment. They're not blah, 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 whatever. Right. I believe we should, it's healthy to talk about it. I think it's healthy for captains, lieutenants, majors to be talking about how they want to spend the rest of their life. What do they want to be doing? They should also feel comfortable coming to their leaders and saying, I'm considering getting out of the Army, going to get an MBA. I'm considering getting out and starting a family. I'm
Yeah.
considering these things so that they can have the conversation before it becomes the first time you found out is when you found out that 50% of your people opted out of battalion command. That if that's a surprise to you, you ain't been talking to people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm under no illusion that the Army is difficult to work through, but it's extremely rewarding. And I also don't fault people wanting to transition because they feel like their talents align somewhere else. I think where I have the extended conversation with someone thinking about transition is when I ask them why they're leaving, is their answer is emotional
Mm-hmm.
or is tied to material gain. And those two reasons for me are pretty haphazard. And what I tend to do, I just keep asking, well, why is that important to you? I want to make a lot of money. Well, why? And then once you get to the second why, they can't answer it.
Yeah.
And what usually happens is this fear. Fear is the root of some of those decisions. It's not that, my talent is best aligned here, and I think my purpose in my life is what I want to do here. Um, that's usually ain't the answer that you get. So I don't know. I do think the Army needs good leadership, and the folks that choose to stay and opt in are the ones who want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in the BCAP and the CCAP process as a vetting process. I think it works. So yeah, I may have faith in it, but it is a bit discouraging that
Yeah.
people would like get to that point and then say, I'm good because I don't want to work long hours.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you, and we're talking about it right now because these are conversations that you're going to have as a battalion commander, right? With all the majors, and these are the conversations that you're going to have with people, but these are also the conversations that I think that you should be anticipating, 4 years from now with some of those captains, and some of those senior people, like they can start living their life in a way that gets them being able to comfortable sharing what's on their mind and what really drives them and what would inspire them, what would get them up in the morning, what would wake them up and fire them up, and what would discourage them,
Hmm.
what would be
Hmm.
discouraging for them kind of going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That was I sit with that. I got a whole page of notes on this topic, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, that's why
Because I'm
it's a good get it off your
yeah,
chest. It's a good one to kind of get out there and get started on, and then
yeah.
you can ruminate on it.
Well, I'm mentoring junior officers now who are asking the same question about, their contribution to society. And they're looking at their peers because all of them are flocking out to MBA programs.
Hmm.
You look at young captains transitioning, many of them are flocking out to MBA programs. And a lot of them are doing it for material gain.
Hmm.
And so, you know, the questions of, okay, what am I doing here? Why do I serve? Keep coming up in these junior officer conversations. And it's worth talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if it's how healthy it is. To the more you talk about it, the more you put things in people's head about opportunity going forward.
Hmm.
But there's so many things that can and probably will change over the next 5 to 10 years that are going to change the way the conversation goes. Like nobody predicted 9/11, and 9/11, was a huge variable that changed the way people looked at long-term service and service to the army and the military and serving your country.
Yeah.
And so, God forbid we have a big war, but not having this huge war right now going forward, we should be happy about that. I think, and we should be happy about the fact that we don't. We can have some of these conversations and we don't have to have the huge force going forward right now, and that people can do and still have the opportunity to do all these different things in their lives. But then we got to kind of in the back of your heart, you trust that if that time came and we needed to call on people, that there would be enough great people out there that were in those MBA programs that would stop what they're doing. They left the NFL to come. They left these
Hmm.
programs. They came and they served, and we were just fine because we had the backbone there. We had the backbone of leadership and units waiting for them when the time came.
Yeah, yeah. And just as a caveat, I'm not trying to take a shot at all the guys in transition and want to do other things. I want to make that clear. But I do love the Army.
Yeah,
And I think there's a plethora of opportunities that it offers you. And hell, I'm a beneficiary of that. I'm an infantry officer, and if I run down what I've been doing for the last 18 years, you wouldn't think so.
yeah,
And so I don't know. I just think that there's great opportunities there that can be taken advantage of.
yeah, yeah. I agree too. And sometimes people say, "Well, it's easy for you to say, Matt. You had this great life. You got a good family. You've had unbelievable assignments. You've had the assignments that you've had over the course of the years. Like nobody gets that list of Italy and Savannah and
Mm.
Hawaii and Tampa and like okay." As if you didn't work really hard to have those choices, to get those opportunities. All right, so we already kind of we went through it. We went through the whole stand up. What else is on your mind right now?
Man, we can make some turns. You ask that question. I'll say this. I was talking to a young 18-year-old yesterday. I was mentor. I'm doing this mentorship program that I got linked up with when I was at Princeton. And this young man's excellent. He's a great guy. He's getting ready for college and doing applications and stuff. And I was on a Zoom with him yesterday. He asked me a question that I didn't anticipate, and he said, I'm trying to figure out how I can make a transition from high school to college, and and transition into manhood. And what does that mean?
Mm.
And I was like, okay. I was like, okay, what a question. And so it's interesting because I got to talking to him, and what I realized is that um, right now, as we sit, and I teach classes at Duke. I've been out to University of Louisville. I'm mentoring these high school seniors. Um, they're all like afraid of that transition,
Hmm.
to college. But they're all are like conflicted in, you know, their identity, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so trying to guide them into that is difficult.
Yeah.
I'm speaking around this thing, but like even when I talk to junior officers, they're trying to figure out who their military persona is versus their civilian persona, and they're trying to like have the best of both worlds. So the side hustle that they have has
Hmm.
something to do with business. So when they leave and take off the uniform, they go to another job, right? And sometimes it overlaps. And so, but they're lost in these two worlds, thinking that they got one foot in, one foot out, and they should have both feet in, one
Yeah.
or the other. And these are becoming coming conversations. The reason I bring it up is because I've had about five of these conversations from the age 18 all the way up to 27. And these folks are thinking about the same things. It's like a collision of identity factors is landing on these people simultaneously.
Yeah. All at the
That's the
same time.
pattern all at the same time. That's what I'm seeing right now. And that's interesting because it didn't used to be that way. At least
Yeah.
I didn't have those conversations before.
I agree. My first 5 years in the Army, all I had to think about was being good at the Army.
Yeah.
I didn't have to think about what I was going to do like later on in life. And when you joined, when most of us went to college, you signed up. Not everybody had to walk in on day one and know what their major was.
Hmm.
And now they're asking kids to walk in on day one and say, "What's your major going to be?"
Yeah.
From the get go. There's no more take the first 2 years and try to figure out what it is you're going to be good at or what you're going to be passionate about. They're being asked on before they even leave high school. Some kids are being asked in high school what's their major going to be when they go to college, and they're
Yeah.
already
See,
they're way too young. They're so
yeah.
young right now, and they're trying to get them out in front of that.
Yeah. I'm of the mindset to take your time and let it come to you. And some of these kids are like, oh, I'm gonna take a gap year. See, they had the privilege to be able to say that. But even still, there's so much pressure. I was in the gym today and I had my Army PT shorts on, and this kid come up to me. He's a UNC student and said that he was in ROTC and he got dismissed because he had suicidal ideations as a college freshman because he had so much pressure from other people trying to pick the major, perform, keep the grades up, financial
Hmm.
aid, that he had these suicide ideations and he thought he could be vulnerable with his folks, and they kicked him out of the program.
Out
And
of the
like and
ROTC
he
program?
yeah. And
Wow.
yeah. But he made a point to come back to me in the gym three different times to talk to me about hand release push-ups and pull-ups. You could tell this kid
Hmm.
wanted to serve, and like he kept coming to me today. I thought that was really interesting. And so all of you take that case today and then compound it on these conversations. That's got me thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I probably listened to 4 or 5 different podcast episodes over the last 2 weeks where they're talking about young kids and young men specifically, and how they're having a hard time because there's so much resources and there's so much attention being put towards either minorities or towards women in the workplace,
Hmm.
and the people that have been left behind are young white males that have been out there, and they're like, what about me? And they're trying to grow up,
Yeah.
they're trying to find their way, they're trying to have male role models, going forward, and everybody's looking for that role model going forward. But when you said the young males joining the Army, looking for something for a role model that's out there. That's what they're looking for. Is they're looking for somebody to kind of emulate, somebody to inspire them, and somebody to follow.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny you say that because I was just talking to Dean Danis. We had the same conversation about the identity crisis when it comes to manhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I say, you know, thank goodness for institutions because sometimes institutions can be good. And in the case of the military, it gives you a common language, right, for community.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy into that. I think the paradox is that when you do buy into it, there can be some neglect in terms of what's going on outside of the institution,
Mm-hmm.
which affects the folks around you. So you're living in two worlds because you see how it's affecting you and you benefit from it. But then you step out of that space and see your family members who are not, who are as foreign as the rest of the nation's public, and they're going through other stuff. So it's complicated, you know. It's really complicated, and that's why I think having veterans and alumni organizations come back to talk is important.
Mm.
You know, because
Yeah.
they have a perspective. I think that they can lend to active service members, especially young people.
Yeah. As much as it's like people coming back, coming back to talk, I think it's people coming back to listen too. Like you should
Hmm.
go out and seek out some of the younger folks and not just tell them what you went through and how you got to where you're at, but find a way to kind of go out and seek them and see what kind of challenges they're going through and see
Hmm.
what's on their mind, see what's bothering them. Otherwise, you're giving them a bunch of solutions to problems that are not really problems for them.
Yeah,
They don't have to deal with it. They're dealing with
yeah,
something totally different.
yeah, yeah. What have you seen in you? Because you got battalions all over the place. Are there any patterns that's coming up as you go out and make your circulation?
Well, our battalions are a little bit different than a typical infantry battalion. Most everybody in our organization right now is sergeant first class and above. They're all
Yeah, yeah.
captains. They're at least captains and majors, and we got a lot of senior folks. So we got a lot of people, more people talking about retirement, more people talking about this is their last, second to last. They're on the tail end of their career. That's
Hmm.
half the organization, and then the other
Yeah.
half of the organization is at least in the middle of their career,
Mm.
especially from the NCO side. So it's a different if it's different conversations, right? It's how do you do your absolute best? How do you contribute to the organization that you're a part of? But you're also on the back of your mind, you're thinking about what am I going to do in 5 years? What am I going to do after this assignment? What type of job am I going to do? How am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to make money? I'm now retired. Where do I want to live?
Yeah.
All those
Yeah.
conversations, they happen a lot more. But I also live on an army base and I'm surrounded by a bunch of, younger soldiers. And so all I got to do is walk out my front door and go see them. Right. And then I have two of them in my family, so I have
Yeah, that's
direct
right. That's
access
right.
to Brady, and to Ryan. Just ask them what they think. And I'm going to have Ryan here with me, and one of the things she asked me is like, are we going to record a podcast when I come home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I was
that's
like, we
great. I was gonna
absolutely
say
are. I
that.
was like, what do you want to talk about? She goes, no, that's up to you. What do you want to know? And so I'll get her to talk to her about, and I'll talk to Brady, and I get to hear directly from them, unfiltered, like what's it like for them out there.
Yeah. Yeah. You should fill some questions from your audience too.
Hmm.
That will be interesting to get the public to ask some questions. I mean, they can send them in or something,
Yeah.
but
I already
yeah.
have been. I've been incorporating the things that people have been asking. I try to
Hmm.
incorporate them into conversation with guests that I have that are already on. So like I'll give you an example is like a lot of the captains are talking about right now. They're saying, what is the future of our army? What's the structure look like? The Cav squadrons are going away. Here in the 25th Infantry Division, we got transformation and contact. We're making a third maneuver battalion. We're pulling companies all around. They're just not sure what the future looks like, right?
Yeah.
So future conversations are going to be about that. Like what
Mm.
does it look like? And then part of that is also it's like for them, hey, I was in the army before Cav squadrons. I came in, then we created the Cav squadrons. Now we're going away from the Cav squadrons, and I'll probably
Hmm.
be in the army
Hmm.
when we go back to the Cav squadron again. So
Yeah.
we're on our fifth different uniform in your time. A 20-year career is really a blip on the radar of like, the overall, the Army
Yeah.
as a whole, so a lot of things can change, but a lot of things are going to be relatively the same,
Yeah, it
going
goes so
forward.
fast though. It
Hmm.
goes so fast. Yeah, I was just thinking about this, when I was a lieutenant and I looked at my battalion commander, that guy looked as old as dirt, and I was
I
like,
know.
and so man, I'm that guy now. I'm
Yeah.
about to be that guy.
Yeah.
So
But when I
yeah.
talk to Brady, brother, the things that Brady is doing in the field are the same things that Matt LeClaire was doing in the field when I was a private. You
Hmm.
know, is the equipment a little bit different? Sure. The night vision's a little bit different. The lasers that are on the weapons is a little bit different. But the things that he's doing, FTXs, live fires,
Yeah.
going to the field, getting on a truck, sitting around and waiting, long time showing up early, showing up
Same
well
stuff.
before it's the same things. Leadership is leadership.
Hmm.
Has leadership changed a little bit? It's changed a little bit. It hasn't
Hmm.
changed, fundamentally, right? There's leaders that inspire people and there's leaders that are just duds. There's leaders that
Yeah.
are there to serve, and they're going to serve for anywhere from 3 to 5 years, but they're going to give it everything they got. And then you got leaders that are in it all for themselves. You got leaders that came in, they don't know why they signed up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those things are relatively the same,
Yeah.
For Brady as they were for me 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that
That's
much
interesting.
different.
Well, I'll be on the lookout for that. My son asked me to do a podcast with him, so we're gonna do that next week.
Yeah.
He wants to talk about child growth and development.
Oh,
So
damn.
that's yeah, I know
Good
that's a
luck with
deep
that
one. So
one.
yeah, I'm curious to hear what he got to say. He's a smart kid, so that's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you want to hear from the next few guests that I got out there?
I think I think what the Army's doing, how the Army's changing, is a popular topic that I would be interested in. I mean, I'm going to see it firsthand here pretty soon, but um, something that's not really. I mean, you gotta walk the line on this one, but how the Army will be affected by the new administration is going to be an interesting take. If you can have that conversation without delving too deep into politics, I think it will be an interesting. It will be interesting, especially with respect to modernization. I think um, I would love to keep my finger on that to see what happens. Um, I also think that I think that I'm still interested in the way the younger generation are processing information at the rate that they can consume it. Given the proliferation of technology and social media and how we're going to integrate that into our tactics, I guess if you might say. And again, I'm going to see that here firsthand too. So, but I got certain assumptions that I want to make, and quite frankly, when I go out and I teach these, I've taught 3 classes at Duke. Only one person has any interaction with anybody in the military, which to me says something about the place, good or bad or indifferent. It's just that's an interesting statistic. And when they say, less than 0.5% serve, I could see it when I'm asking these kids, do they have any background on military service members? And the
Hmm.
only perception they get is through fiction because these are English classes. So I'm very deliberate about not allowing their first perception of a service member be a toxic one,
Hmm.
you know? So yes, I don't know. But that's just coming off my head. Those are the things that I'm interested in right now.
All right, I'm gonna lump those into the next few. I got a few of them lined up for the next couple weeks, and
Mhm.
try to get those recordings done. Try to get them out before the new year, and then into January as well, so I can keep
Yeah,
them going.
what might be interesting, I guess coming back in January is, folks experience going back home on winter leave. Like, what are their families saying about the military, or what are the stories they're telling? And they receive because when we got back from GWAT, I think people were just like in a daze. It was like the war was never happening in some respects. And so I'm curious to know, I guess, when people return from winter leave, what their exodus was like.
Mm,
Did they talk about the military? What was said about it? Like, what's the story? What's the impressions? I don't know. I'm interested in that.
yeah. Well, for our listeners that are out there, that's the kind of thing that you don't have to be running a podcast to have those kind of conversations with people, right? You
Yeah.
can when people come back from leave, you can share things with them and you can ask those questions. Yeah. Again, you don't have to run a podcast. You don't have to put it out there for everybody to hear, but you can absolutely have these conversations with people that are out there. We had a formation the other day to recognize some soldiers and to give some awards and stuff like that right before we went on block leave, right?
Hmm.
And what I told everybody was, hey, you don't need to have an awards formation to recognize and make people feel like they're part of something special, to make people feel important. You can find opportunities. There are opportunities every day to tell people thank you, to tell people that you
Hmm.
appreciate them, that you appreciate what they do, that you appreciate their service, that you appreciate what they do for the team that they're a part of. And so, I want to close with, from my point, Trivius, like I have appreciated, our relationship over the last few years, and how, you're always there to kind of get on a call and share these kind of things with everybody. You got enough courage to put it out there for the whole world to hear, to any of those people that are listening, and to be a part of that journey with me. And so, never miss an opportunity to tell somebody thanks and how much they mean to you.
Yeah, likewise, as a mentor and a friend, you've always been there. And these conversations are great, the platform to be vulnerable. And just to think out loud,
Hmm.
I think is vital. So I appreciate you too. I listen to the Teach Me How to Fish podcast. So I benefit from hearing other people's stories too.
Yeah.
So no, it's good. Mutual exchange.
Yeah. Live everything, brother. Have a great
That's right.
Christmas.
All right, you too. You too.
All right,
Take
buddy.
care.
Take care.
All right.
Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts and, better yet, demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.